Thanks very much. We've now got a little bit of time set aside for some questions to any of the panel. We'll say, if you've got a question for Chris, if you could ask it first. He's probably got time for one question, then he's got to nip off and get the train. So if anyone's got a question for Chris, ask it now.
If not, my details are going to be on...
Yeah, the details will be on the slide, or if you want Chris's details, feel free to email me or get in contact and I can put you in touch with Chris, no problem. Sorry, if we've got the roving mic here, just so we can pick up the question for the camera.
Is it for me?
It's kind of generally...
Okay. I'll start packing up.
So my question is, various members mentioned that the apps were classed as jumping on the bandwagon or maybe not the long-term future and that something else may be coming available. Is that actually how you see apps, as a bandwagon that businesses need to jump on, or should they see it as something more permanent?
I think in general we can say that mobile is here to stay, and people interacting with their phones in new ways and expecting to get more powerful experiences and value out of them. I think without a doubt that's here to stay. Exactly what that's going to look like in the future, I think, is anyone's guess, really. I think apps are here for a while. The web standards that create the strong enough mobile experiences are still a little way off. So it's about picking what you invest in at the right time, and it really comes down to what's right for the business or the organisation that are thinking about heading down the apps route.
Yeah, thank you.
Next question. Just at the back.
This is a question for Gavin. I don't know if it's possible if you can give us an idea of what the budget was to develop the app for the Fringe.
I can probably give hints. I can't give you actual figures.
Sure.
So the first year was very low. We absorbed most of the cost, my company, from where it came from. The second year we sponsored it, and it was part of a general direction for us to create this style of applications. The third year, the sponsorship from Arts and Business and Virgin Money was of tens of thousands of pounds. I mean, in general, I can give you some indication of budgets for kind of contractor freelance developers. You could be looking between £1,000 and £10,000, but I wouldn't be certain of the quality. Finding a good freelancer can actually be a little bit of a lottery. If you're going to use an app development organisation or a company, you would be looking at somewhere between probably £10,000 and £100,000, maybe £5,000 and £100,000. But it does really depend on the application and how complicated it is.
I was just going to follow up on that. If you're doing the app again this year, is there anything kind of that you've learned from the previous versions, and maybe add-ons, without giving away any trade secrets, that you're thinking about introducing this year, and anything that you're going to do differently?
There are some new things that we're doing that are not directly related to the app. It's actually helping the participants of the Fringe get more out of the Fringe. So there's a slightly separate twist. The apps are going to be pretty similar to what they were last year, actually. The consumer apps, but there is a participants app coming, which is a little bit different.
Next question down here at the front. Keep you on your toes.
Hi, I'm Dwinwyn from Connecting Carers, and I am exploring developing an app to extend our service delivery to carers, and we're a third sector voluntary organisation. So although I am supposedly kind of cherry picking ideas from the commercial sector, what projects can I look at for apps that have been developed that are not looking to monetize or work in a commercial way, but are perhaps looking more for mobile health or social benefits?
Yeah. Anyone want to pick up on that that's more qualified to speak than I am?
Slightly more, just a bit. I mean, have you looked at things like the Dallas Project and that sort of thing? Have a look at the Dallas Project. Technology Strategy Board have a few initiatives for that type of thing as well. Sort of, M-Health or mobile health is massive, going to be even bigger. The whole aging population thing as well is worth looking at for finance for projects.
Are they mainly based in the US at the moment, or are these
No, these are all
projects?
UK-based initiatives to help you kind of, find the finance and the right people to work on projects.
There is a funding scheme that we administer at Interface on behalf of the Scottish Funding Council called the Innovation Voucher Scheme, which allows companies up to £5,000 per project to work with a university. But it doesn't allow you to do app development directly. There can be kind of innovative feasibility, proof of concept type projects that could look to feed into that. But a lot of companies were seeing these vouchers as a way of basically offsetting the cost of developing an app with a university rather than doing it with a commercial company. But there are areas that you could look at using an innovation voucher for. It just wouldn't fund the actual development aspect of it directly.
I could also add that there's an interesting app in London. There's a charity called Witness Confident, and it's about helping victims of crime. And they're creating a geo-based app, so that might be one worth looking at. And I'd also point you in the direction of Ambition Scotland, which is based in Glasgow, that works with a lot of those kind of types of apps.
Next question.
Hi, I have a question. Can you tell us about conversion from free downloads to actually purchased? Do you know, if you download a free game, how many people actually convert to the purchased element of it? And is it more successful to have an app where that conversion is either you've got the first few levels that are free, then you have to purchase more levels, or if it's add-ons like you were talking about earlier on, your bride and groom for the wedding cake?
We haven't actually done any free apps with upgrades, so I'm not sure I'm the best person to talk about that.
Yeah, we're the opposite end. We've only done free ones and we've not charged for any of them. So
I'm going to say something similar here. Most of ours have been free. I think that it's a tricky balance. It really depends on your application, what users will pay for. I know that the paid app downloads used to be... I used to get 7 times as many free app downloads as you got paid app downloads for the same application. So some app developers had tested this, and 7 times seemed to be the average. But yeah, if you can find the right point that users are willing to pay for the next level, that they feel they get enough free content for the app to work at marketing itself, and then there's something enticing for them to pay for it. It really depends on the app again.
Can I say one other thing, or ask one other thing? I sort of asked about developing an app elsewhere, and was told that when you use a developer, if they develop it themselves, then that IP thing you can look to acquire, but they can actually go and use IP that's already developed, and then you don't actually ultimately own that app, even when you get it back. Anything around that? Any advice around that?
Yeah. The default position is that the person who does the work, unless they're doing it as an employee of the client, owns what they produce. So an app is a bundle of different rights with different sources. So it is a case of working out in advance who owns what. Is there some IP that's already there that's being brought by the developer? Quite likely. Is there some IP that's being generated that's brand new? Yes. And working out what rights are appropriate to be acquired outright by you if you're the customer who's engaging the developer. in a perfect world, you would want to own everything. It's not always possible to do that. So it's finding the right mix of rights which cover what you want to do now and what you might want to do in the future in terms of further development of the brand. I mean, Angry Birds is an absolutely brilliant example. You know, there's a brand there now that has all sorts of different outlets, way beyond the app itself. So having a strategy from the beginning that covers where you might go with the app, and make sure that along that road you're picking up the rights that you need, not just to do what you want to do now, but what you might want to do in the future. It's all about protecting the future access to the market. That said, if you want to acquire everything outright, that's probably going to be more expensive to do on the way.
Time for one or two more questions. Gary down the front.
Gary Campbell, UHI. Just in terms of researching, if you're going to move into this as a method of advertising, I mean, I see it just as an extension of what businesses should be doing, another avenue. And speaking as myself, I genuinely believed that Angry Birds, honestly, was the kind of people you might meet in here on a Friday night. I didn't know, I didn't know it existed as something in a computer until half an hour ago. Someone else explained what it was. And with demographics, of which you can probably guess the demographic I'm in because of that, is there a lot? Who are the most likely people to use it? Is it genuinely youngsters, or what's the difference in demographics in terms of people using apps? And aside from that, is there a lot of robust data in terms of who you should, or how you can basically target your app to your audience?
I think, speaking personally from my point of view, when you looked at the examples I gave in terms of who's using them, it's a wide range. And I think that's where you've got to kind of look who you are targeting. Why are you launching this app? Right through from sports fans to the games to providing an additional channel for accessing existing clients. There's a good report from Business Insider. I can send you the link by email that talks about some of the ways that you can target apps, some of the future thinking around apps, and also around the kind of at that cusp at the moment, particularly in the States, where you've got a lot of transition between dumb phones and smartphones, and how there's going to be just an exponential growth in the opportunities for apps as a lot more particular users in the States move over from these dumb phones to smartphones. And it's not just one device that they're going to have. It's going to be multiple devices, be it smartphones and tablets and whatnot. And I think it was only in the last year that the sale of tablets and smartphones have actually outstripped PCs. So having to kind of tailor what you do for that market. I don't know if anyone else got that.
Advent of apps and Facebook as platforms has really made a big difference in the demographic. So the average Facebook gamer is a 35-year-old woman, for example, which you don't typically think of. So it really depends on the genre and the type of app you're talking about, but it's opened up a lot. And it also, as you've just said, the type of platform you're going to be on if your targeted audience doesn't have... or just have... if they don't have microphones also, then if your targeted audience doesn't have access to the platform you're going to be on, then that's a concern, something to think about.
I think just to add a little to that, there are organisations who publish statistics on the demographics that are using different devices. The last that I've seen are a bit rough, but it is skewed towards the younger ages. Although you would be surprised how far it extends and how strongly the older demographics are. I think one of the reasons for that is with the tablets and the mobile devices we have now, they've actually made them much more accessible than computing typically was for older people. It's not as big a challenge to go and learn an interface. It actually helps you through it. So I know countless stories of people who've given their grandmother an iPad and suddenly they send emails. And I think there's a little bit of that to it as well.
It's like the BT adverts out at the moment, where the mother's constantly asking the guy because she's always online and whatnot. So.
Hi, I was wondering, if you have an app, obviously you're opening yourself up to a global market with many countries, many different laws and legislations, opt-in policies versus opt-out policies. Do you see that as a potential stumbling block with international law and legislation from a locally produced app?
Potentially, but it's just an extension of the same issue that exists for online sales generally. There is an element of uniformity across Europe when it comes to this. And it's a case of working out what are your major markets and aiming your compliance strategy at compliance with the rules and regulations in the major markets, which are not always completely aligned. So the US approach on privacy, for example, is different from the European approach on privacy. So it's building a strategy that enables you to probably reach ultimately the highest common denominator in terms of compliance that you need to access the markets. There is no complete solution because there is such a variety of regulation. Every country has different laws, and there are some regional kind of schemes regional scheme. The European Union is not a regional scheme, but there are some approaches that cover larger territories, but I think it's principally working out where your major market is and targeting the approach you take to that major market's laws.
Does that mean you could always potentially be at risk from some form of...
Yes, there's no such thing as a zero risk strategy. It's about identifying and measuring and then building a strategy to manage the risk that's involved. So it's, there isn't a kind of a magic button approach, but certainly there are, if you're looking at European markets and US markets, there are ways you can build in compliance that works for both of these and for other major markets as well.
Time for one more question. Nope. Okay then. Well, just falls to me to just wrap up the event. That's the end of the formal part of the session. We have got another half hour in here, so that if you want to continue the networking and continue the conversations. I'd just like to thank Chris at Robert Gordon University and Ian Hamilton at Highlands and Islands.